Howard, Tyrati, and Chris Russell?
Both are banged up a little bit. Neither will play tomorrow. Both are expected to make the trip and hopefully be ready for opening night.
Okay. We obviously saw Al get a waive to be assigned to Baco today. There's still a couple guys here on PTOs. Are there any other roster moves coming? Like an update with the PTO?
Well, there has to be some roster moves coming. Obviously, you look at the numbers, so that has to happen. In Al's situation, he's got a family thing going on with a pregnancy and that type of stuff, so we felt that we could give him a couple days right now to see his family and get that organized and get everything in order there. And then as we go forward, we have the 2 goaltenders now. We need to bring a third over to Europe, and we'll do that, and then we will start the season.
Do you want to still look at tomorrow's game before you decide the 24 that are going to Europe?
Yep.
Okay. Will Connor play tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay.
Todd, in speaking to Leon Draisaitl today, he said he's a traditional slow starter when it comes to the preseason. In what ways can the coaching staff and his teammates maybe kind of help mitigate that or help him find his game early on?
Well, there's some good things coming up for Leon. I said this yesterday, he hasn't scored a bunch of goals or anything, and that's okay. That's not about that. It's about getting his legs underneath him, making plays, feeling good on the ice. Game management's a big thing for him and for our team right now. Playing situations well, and the offense is going to come. He'll continue to create for himself and for his line mates. So I'm not too concerned about that. I think I hope not everybody is looking beyond, tomorrow's game, because that's an important game. But I think there'll be some excitement now for the group to get to Europe, and in particular for Tobias and Leon. We're going to his home. His dad happens to coach the other team. He's got some energy and some excitement about family and friends being around there. We forget often what it's like for European players. Over here, our families are around, and even if you're in Toronto, Connor's family can come over and be here. It's tougher for the European players to have that happen, and we rarely ever go to their environment. Parents, friends, family come to our environment, so it's exciting for them.
Todd, when it comes to Cam Talbot, what have you liked during the preseason, and do you like where he's at right now heading into the regular season?
You really like where he's at right now. Obviously, like the way he's playing and the calmness, the confidence that he's showing in his game, the way he's carrying himself off the rink, practice habits, everything about his game right now is really good. Now, with that being said, he's going to have some off nights. We all have them. And the recovery from those will be important. I was asked that yesterday. We talked about that. The group around him has to recover and be real good, and Talbot will do his thing, but he's in a good spot right now.
How much emphasis do you place on the importance of experience in an end-of-roster position? So you got a couple of experienced guys on PTOs. Does that factor into your final decisions?
Yes and no. Experience, just for the fact that you've played in the league, doesn't, everybody's end comes at some point, and if the end has arrived, there's no sense keeping experience around. You've got to bring something, you've got to be able to play. And it is teams have shown it, the youthful energy that some of the younger players bring. They may make more mistakes. Maybe they haven't played as many games, but they tend to bring a lot of energy to the game. So there's a balance between both.
You mentioned the guys that are kind of iffy in the next 48 hours or whatever. You have to take a plane in that period. Are you taking a couple extra guys over above the 23?
We have the luxury of taking, we could take the whole camp right now and go to Germany. We can do that because we still have an exhibition game to play. Players can play that exhibition game on a PTO is what I understand. We've got 2 players that are banged up that we didn't count on them being banged up. So now the roster grows by a couple. We've sorted out the goaltender situation for now. We'll have a third one coming with us. So there may be 1 or 2 moves, potentially 3 at the most before we go. But we've got to get through another game. Knock on wood, somebody gets banged up. We sure don't want 2 guys flying to Bakersfield while we're taking off for Germany. So things are going to happen quick tomorrow.
Okay, I was talking to Ethan in there. He said he has no idea one way or the other. From what you said here, it looks like you're leaning toward 8 defensemen for that trip. Is that accurate?
Potentially. If you include Chris Russell in that mix, for sure 8, because he hasn't skated for a couple days, and we're not sure when he'll be active. So definitely 8, and if you want to throw Sakara into the mix, we'll have 9.
And totally shifting gears here is the how would you characterize the team as a whole? I mean, you've got all these different emotions: excitement, anxiety, all those things. They're all wrapped up into a package here.
Yeah, they are. It's a different season. It's a new season. One, there's emotion that comes in with that because you've got a bitter taste in your mouth about the past. So new season that way. It's a different preseason because of the quickness of picking your team and the trip overseas. So there's emotion there. The long journey ahead of us, there's some planning and some tactics that go into planning a 14, 15-day road trip to different countries. And so it is different, and I'm kind of glad it's been different. It's not the routine that we normally go through. Maybe it jolts a few of the players, but the presentation overall by the players throughout training camp has been real positive. They've been attentive, they've worked, they've made mistakes, which allows us to have some teaching moments. They've accepted those mistakes, they want to work on them and get better at it. The freewheeling, wide open, 262 goals against has found its way into our game, but not on a regular basis. We've been able to tighten some things up. Goaltenders played better. We still got some work to do on special teams, but we're very young in the evolution of this year's team and got a lot of work to do.
This sort of piggybacks off that. Like, I look at this trip as not just leading up to that regular season game, but the games after that, right? Getting your game in the right place for the start of the season. What specifically have you done to get ready for the trip, like the early practices, and what will you do on the trip to make this a business trip so it prepares you not just for Gothenburg, but for after Gothenburg?
Well, we told the players that we want them to enjoy this trip. We want them to find ways away from the rink to come together as a team to discuss any issues we may have, how we want to play, and those types of things. Call it team building, if you will. As I said yesterday, the best team building we can do on this trip is win games. But there's opportunities away from the rink for us to discuss things, to get together, to have a little bit of fun, to enjoy the experience. In Leon and Tobias's case, to be good hosts and to be proud of their cities. There's some Swedes that are on our team that are going to have family around. So it's the complete package. We always think of hockey as the players, the puck, and the goals, but there's a lot of things that go on in players' lives. We saw a lot of it last year here. And we want them to enjoy the experience, have their families around them. But it is a business trip. When it's time to perform, we're going to be as good as we possibly can, not only in Europe, but also in Boston, New York, Winnipeg.
Todd, a lot has been made about your top line at camp, and I'm just curious. I know McDavid did play with Ratty at the end of last season, but do you find, like, as a superstar player, as a front line center, do you find that he has kind of changed his game a little bit, or does things to adapt to different wingers that aren't clearly superstars?
Not necessarily changed his game. I think he's looking for some consistency with his line mates. I think he would appreciate that, and that comes with that group playing consistently. I don't feel like he's changed his game much. Players have figured out how to play with him a little bit more, which is important. Nuge can complement any type of player. Nuge could play with Leon, and Nuge could play with Connor, and I think the combination of both of them would be great. He's that good a player himself. And then Ty has come in and fit that spot for now, and we expect him to stay there. But he has a skill set and a sense of timing that complements the other two.
Todd, just going back and focusing on Europe, I mean, you've probably coached in a number of different scenarios, looking at the opposite coach on the other bench, but it's going to be Leon's dad next Wednesday. What's that scenario like, one of your players' father being on the other bench, and have you thought about what that's
Well,
like?
we better get the best pre-scout in the world from Leon, right? So there's a lot of responsibility we're putting on him. But in my experience in that game with Leon and Leon's dad, that would be a new one for me. But it's an honor. I know Mr. Draisaitl has a tremendous hockey mind. He's a well-respected coach in Europe. They're very lucky to have him as their coach, and his team will be well prepared. As I mentioned the other day, my experience with San Jose going over and that type of stuff, that first game is a tough one. It doesn't matter who you play. You're a little bit sluggish. The ice size is different. You're playing usually at a time where you're just waking up or crawling out of bed. There's a lot of things that go on in that first one. We want everybody to get their legs underneath them in that game. Everybody will get to play in different situations. It's way more about us adapting to the time, the environment, than it is, tactics or anything like that. So they'll give us a run for our money, I can tell you that, based on experience.
And just finally, I know obviously English is spoken throughout Europe, but any remedial German or Swedish classes or anything like that?
No, I'm sure the swear words come out first, right? Everybody's bilingual when it comes to swearing, and I'm sure those have been shared with already or probably heard in the locker room, but there may be some on the plane. I don't know. We'll see.
Todd, what's your assessment of guys like Ryan Strome who've really had their roles kind of defined early in preseason? Heading into Europe, how do you think they've responded to their roles, and going forward, how that's going to develop?
Well, Stromer, in particular, when he joined our team, we anticipated him filling a hole and filling the net a little bit. What we found out as we went on, that he could do that, but maybe not at the rate that we thought. And eventually, as the year went on, we found a spot for him at center ice. We found a role for him in dealing with some of our players, Jesse in particular. They've got a good relationship, and he's been able to help him come along. Our penalty kill improved significantly when he took more responsibility on. Him and JJ Kyra were big parts of that. So maybe the assumption on our behalf that he could fill the net wasn't fair to the player, or maybe he can still do that. But what he has found is a pretty good role or niche right now with our group, and when he plays to that, he's a very effective player. Well, we'll have some options. We're still throwing that around. Today we had Tobias up there and Pontus. Again, our lineup tomorrow, if you think that's our opening night lineup, it probably won't be, based on health and moving players around. I'd like to see what Toby does with those two, with Connor and Nuge playing as off wing. So we may experiment with that. We'd like to get JJ and Cass back into the lineup. So there'll be some guys moving around.